From Lagos, the nation's commercial capital, this is the news at 10, live from Channels Television. Reporting tonight, Sulaiman Al-Leather.
Hello and welcome. Tonight, President Goodluck Jonathan lays off 9 ministers in a major cabinet shake-up. UNESCO's Directorate General prescribes development of education, science and technology as the key to realizing the country's Vision 2020. Victims of collapsed buildings at Jakonde Estate receive limited compensation from Lagos State government. Russia hands over proposal for making serious chemical weapons safe to the U.S.
And on business news tonight, the Apex Bank further squeezes its cash reserve ratio on public sector funds.
And on sports news tonight, President Jonathan rewards Nigeria's track queen Blessing Okagbare for her exploits at the IAAF World Championship.
President Goodluck Jonathan has wielded the big stick and sacked 9 of his ministers. Those shown the way out are the Minister for National Planning, Minister of State for Defense, Minister of State for Power, Foreign Affairs Minister, Minister of Education, Minister of Environment, Minister of State for Agriculture, Housing and Urban Development Minister, as well as the Minister of Science and Technology. Our State House correspondent Chukuma Onekusi has more on this.
45 ministers in the Federal Cabinet converge for the Federal Executive Council meeting presided over by President Goodluck Jonathan. No one knew that some of them will be dropped this day, even though there have been speculations over the period of time. The Minister of Information says their sack was with immediate effect. According to him, the president is said to be satisfied with their service to the fatherland.
These ministers have been affected in the cabinet reshuffle, and the president in council expressed his satisfaction and happiness over their commitment to government since they were appointed.
The Minister of Information, who now takes care of defense, also announced the names of the replacements.
Ministry of Foreign Affairs will be covered by the Honorable Minister of State 1, Foreign Affairs, Professor Viola Onwoleri. The Ministry of Education will be covered by the Honorable Minister of State, Nyesom Wike. The Ministry of Environment will be covered by the Minister of State, Niger Delta, Architect Dairos. The Ministry of Land and Housing and Urban Development will be covered by Architect Musa Seda, the Minister of Solid Minerals. The Minister of Science and Technology will be covered by the Honorable Minister of Communication Technology, Mrs. Johnson. The Ministry of National Planning will be covered by the Minister of State Works, Ambassador Bashir Yuguda. In the case of the Minister of Power and Agric, they already have substantive ministers, so their ministers will take full responsibilities pending the appointment of maybe Minister of States that will be working with them. And the Minister of Defense have been asked to cover pending the appointment of a new minister for defense.
On whether or not the dropping of the ministers has any political undertone.
This has absolutely nothing to do with any other factor other than that. Having come 2 years into his own administration, in the last lap, what I see the president doing is to refocus his government, to inject in fresh blood, to achieve, greater service delivery to the people of Nigeria.
The federal government says a new list will be forwarded to the National Assembly for screening and appointment into the offices affected. Chukuma Onwekusi, Channels Television News.
Well, it's a huge wind, a big wind of change, and it appears to have reached Kaduna State, as the governor, Mr. Mukhtar Yero, has announced the dissolution of his executive council with immediate effect. A statement signed by the governor's Director General, Media and Publicity, Mr. Ahmed Miyaki, directed all the commissioners to hand over their responsibilities to their permanent secretaries by Friday, September the 13th. The sacked commissioners were appointed in 2011 by the late governor of the state, Patrick Yakoa, who died in a plane crash in Bayelsa State. Now, the Federal High Court sitting in Port Harcourt, Rivers State, will tomorrow, September the 12th, rule on an application seeking to recognize Senator Andy Uba as a candidate of the People's Democratic Party in the November the 16th governorship elections in Anambra State. The suit, instituted by the Anambra State PDP faction led by Ejike Ogwebego, is challenging the decision of the National Working Committee of the party, which recognized the Ken Emekai faction. The faction produced Tony Nwoye as its candidate. Counsel to the Andy Uba faction, Jude Nodum, says Ken Emekai has been suspended from the party and lacks the power to conduct primaries. However, counsel to the Tony Nwoye faction, Tagbo Ike, says the Ejike Ogwebego faction lacks the legal right to seek the application for injunction following the decision of an Abuja High Court. Now, the federal government has announced plans to introduce necessary policies and legislations that will facilitate smooth, speedy, and effective administration of criminal justice in order to guarantee free and fair trial of suspects. Solicitor General of the Federation, Mr. Abdullahi Yola, who announced this in Abuja, said the federal government remains committed to the development and implementation of policies and reforms aimed at improving justice delivery. He advised prosecutors and agencies to subject themselves to the 2011 to 2015 Justice Sector Reform Action Plan initiated by the federal government in order to achieve higher prosecution standards.
A national policy is imperative for efficient crime prosecution in a complex federation like Nigeria. It is essential in the context of current challenges of crimes management in the country. A prosecutions policy will help to streamline good practices and methods of the various prosecutors and prosecuting agencies. This will no doubt lead to quality crime prosecution, increased efficiency, and effectiveness in our criminal justice administration. With the increasing rate of emerging and organized crimes in the country, together with the need to improve cooperation and enhance expertise and capacity of prosecutors across the country and across agencies, the proposed national policy on prosecutions and the strategy to implement it become necessary tools that will encourage and motivate prosecutors and prosecuting agencies to deliver quality services.
Well, the senator representing Kwara Central at the National Assembly, Bukola Saraki, has assured Nigerians that the ongoing crisis in the PDP will soon be resolved. He also says the crisis will make the party stronger for future elections. The senator made these comments on arrival at the Ilorin International Airport, where he was welcomed by a crowd of supporters.
To solve the grievances and the areas of concern so that we can be able to find the way forward to ensure that some of these issues are addressed. But my main concern is that it's really from our own people in the the state for them to be well informed of some of the issues. As you know that in the state here we speak with one voice, we're a united front, and as such it's my obligation to keep them well informed of developments so that they're well informed and we can take our decisions and consult depending on whatever the outcome of this series of meetings are.
For Nigeria to attain its Vision 2020, the country must focus on education, science and technology. This is coming from the Director General of the United Nations Educational, Scientific and Cultural Organization, Mrs. Irina Bokova, who promised UNESCO's expertise in helping to achieve development in the two areas. She was speaking at a meeting between UNESCO officials and the Minister of State for Foreign Affairs in Abuja, where she commended the federal government for its role in peacekeeping operations and conflict resolutions.
And for social development.
Quel message de l'UNESCO apportez-vous au peuple nigérien en rapport avec la paix, l'éducation et le développement de la femme?
Je put a strong emphasis on education. The ambitious program 2020, in order to make education one of the drivers of competitivity and of a transformation of the country, of making it a real leader in science, innovation and research, goes through education. When I speak about education, I want to emphasize two things. First is access to education, to give all the boys and girls access to education, get everybody in school, out-of-school children, but we should not forget the quality of education. And I think here it's very legitimate what Nigeria has put as a priority in the 2020 plan. It's a training of teachers, it's looking at curricula, it's adding also new technologies, using new technologies in education, and also I would say linking education with the professional life of young people.